The security guard grabbed his arm. "Sir, you need to leave. Now." The music was still playing. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter floated under chandeliers worth more than most homes. Across the ballroom, an 8-year-old boy collapsed onto marble. Screams shattered the elegance. A billionaire father dropped to his knees. "Ethan! Ethan!" Guests stumbled backward. Champagne glasses hit the floor. No one moved toward the child. No one except the boy they were trying to remove. The Annual Whitmore Foundation Gala. Invitation only. Politicians in tailored suits. CEOs with watches worth cars. Surgeons who saved lives and rarely spoke about it. Generational wealth stitched into every fabric. And standing near the edge, a quiet black teenage boy. Deep brown skin. Simple black suit. Polished shoes, but not expensive ones. He didn't belong here. At least, that's what security believed. But here's the truth they didn't know. Malik Carter had earned his place. Security saw what they were trained to see. A young black man standing near the private donor section. Someone who didn't match the room. Someone who looked like he needed watching. "Who are you here with?" the guard asked. Malik didn't answer immediately. Because technically, he wasn't here with anyone. He was here on scholarship. A guest of the Whitmore Academic Initiative. But in rooms like this, people didn't see scholarships. They saw skin tone. They saw difference. They saw out of place. But Malik wasn't looking at the guard. He was looking past him. Across the room stood Charles Whitmore III. Silver hair. Powerful presence. Beside him, his son Ethan. 8 years old. Blonde. Bright smile. Ethan tugged his father's sleeve. "Daddy, who's that?" He pointed toward Malik. Charles glanced. Saw a teenage boy in a simple suit. "Probably someone's guest," he said, already looking away. He didn't see the scholarship badge. Didn't see the Whitmore Academic Initiative pin. And honestly, most people wouldn't have. But Ethan kept watching. And for a moment, across a ballroom full of strangers, Ethan smiled at Malik. Malik smiled back. A small thing. A second, maybe 2. No one noticed. No one except Malik. Because Malik noticed everything. He had learned to. His younger sister had taught him that. Before she died. Be honest. If you were in that ballroom, surrounded by crystal and silk and the smell of old money, would you have noticed him? The waiters didn't. The donors didn't. Charles Whitmore didn't. Security did, but for the wrong reasons. But here's what no one saw. Malik was watching something no one else could see. That slight paleness in a child's face. That subtle imbalance. Ethan was laughing too hard. Breathing slightly off. Sweat on his temple. In an air-conditioned ballroom. No one noticed. But Malik did. Because he had seen it before. 3 years ago, Malik's 12-year-old sister died. Heart condition. Treatable. But by the time anyone noticed, by the time anyone took her seriously, by the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Malik made a promise that night. Standing in a hospital hallway, watching his mother crumble, watching his father's silence, he promised. No one else would collapse in front of him without him knowing what to do. He studied. He trained. He became ready. For a moment no one saw coming. For a child no one else noticed. For tonight. Pay close attention now. Because this is where everything changes. The guard's hand was still on Malik's shoulder. "Sir, I need you to step back. Now." Malik didn't move. Not because he was stubborn. Because across the room, Ethan's smile froze. His small hand clutched his chest. His body swayed. "He's going down," Malik said quietly. The guard didn't understand. "What?" And then, Ethan's body dropped. Malik's eyes moved like a doctor's. Not panicked. Not curious. Assessing. Ethan's color, slightly off. His breathing, faster than it should be. The way his small hand pressed against his chest, like something hurt, but he didn't want to worry anyone. Malik had seen this before. His sister's face, 3 years ago, in their small apartment. Same look, same denial, same disaster waiting to happen. "I need to get closer," Malik said. The guard's jaw tightened. "You need to leave." Here's what everyone else saw: wealth, success, a perfect evening. Charles Whitmore accepting congratulations. Ethan laughing with other children. Waiters moving with trays of champagne. No one saw a child in distress. No one saw the signs, because no one was looking for them. And honestly, would you have? In a room full of glitter and power, surrounded by the most successful people in the city, would you have noticed one boy breathing wrong? Most wouldn't, but Malik did, because he learned to see what others ignore. Step back, sir. Final warning. The guard's hand was on Malik's shoulder now. Firm. Ready to escalate. Malik didn't move. Not because he was stubborn. Because he saw Ethan's smile freeze. Saw his small hand clutch his chest. Saw his body sway. He's going down, Malik said quietly. The guard didn't understand. What? And then, Ethan's body dropped. The music kept playing for 3 more seconds. No one noticed at first. Then a woman screamed. Then another. Then Charles Whitmore dropped to his knees. Ethan! Ethan! The orchestra stopped. Champagne glasses shattered. Guests stumbled backward. Some reaching for phones, some frozen, all useless. No one moved toward the child. No one knew what to do. Except Malik. He broke free from the guard's grip. Ran. Dropped beside Ethan. Charles Whitmore held his son. A billionaire who could buy anything. And in that moment he had nothing. I don't know what to do, he whispered. The most powerful man in the room. Broken. Helpless. Guests watched. Phones recorded. No one helped. Be honest. What would you have done? Would you have known how to check a pulse? Would you have known what to look for? Most people freeze. Most people wait for someone else. Most people don't know. But Malik knew. 17 years old. No medical degree. No formal training. Just a promise he made to himself 3 years ago. He pushed past the frozen guests. Knelt beside Charles. Move. Charles looked up. Confused, desperate. You're not a doctor. I know what this is. Something in Malik's voice made Charles move. Not authority from money. Authority from certainty. Seconds stretched like hours. Ethan's face getting paler. Charles shaking. The room silent except for Malik's voice. Come on, Ethan. Stay with me. He positioned the boy carefully. Checked again. Pulse fading. He knew what came next. Chest compressions. If he did nothing, Ethan would make it. If he did them wrong, he could hurt him. But if he waited for someone else, there was no one else. Stay with me here. This is the moment that separates people who wait from people who act. Malik placed his hands on Ethan's chest. Measured. Precise. He had practiced this on mannequins. On videos. In his head. Never on a real person. Never on a child. But his sister's face flashed in his memory. And he knew. He couldn't watch another one fade. Compression 1. 2. 3. The guard who tried to remove him stood frozen. Guests who ignored him now stared. Charles Whitmore, a man who controlled billions, could only watch a teenager fight for his son's life. The compressions continued. Steady. Rhythmic. Precise. 20. 30. 40. Ethan's body jerked once. Then again. Then a small gasp. Air. Life. That small sound, larger than any applause in that room. Ethan's chest rose. His eyes fluttered. And Charles Whitmore collapsed forward, sobbing. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Malik didn't respond. He was still counting. Still monitoring. Still working. Because the emergency wasn't over. Not yet. Sirens outside. Doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in, equipment, stretcher, urgency. They pushed through the crowd. Took over. One paramedic looked at Malik, who started compressions. Malik raised his hand quietly. The paramedic nodded. You saved critical time. Charles heard every word. And in that moment, the room understood something it hadn't before. The boy they tried to remove, he was the only one who knew what to do. Charles looked at Malik with new eyes. Not as a stranger. Not as someone out of place. As the person who saved his son. Malik stood quietly. No words. No pide. Just the quiet satisfaction of keeping a promise he made 3 years ago in a different hospital hallway. Hospital hallway. Silent. Charles sat alone, still in his tuxedo, hands trembling, makeup running from tears he didn't know he shed. Malik stood at the far wall, not seeking praise, not talking to reporters who had gathered outside, just waiting, because he knew what waiting felt like. He had done it before, in a different hospital, for a different reason. That time, the news was bad. The doors opened. A doctor emerged, still in scrubs. Charles stood so fast he almost fell. "He's stable," the doctor said. Charles collapsed against the wall. "You brought him in early enough." The compressions made the difference. Charles closed his eyes, breathed for what felt like the first time. Then he looked at Malik, the boy at the end of the hall, still waiting, still quiet. Charles walked toward him, stopped a few feet away. "Why?" Malik looked up. "Why what? Why did you help him? They were removing you. No one would have blamed you for walking away." Malik was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because no one helped my sister fast enough." The words landed like stones. Charles's face changed. How old was she? 12. When? 3 years ago. Silence. Charles swallowed.
"I'm sorry, kropka."
Malik nodded. "Me too." That sentence carried weight heavier than chandeliers. A billionaire who could buy anything. A teenager who had nothing. And, in that moment, they were equals. Connected by one thing, a child's life. Charles looked at Malik differently now. Not as a scholarship kid. Not as someone who didn't belong. As someone who understood loss. As someone who turned pain into purpose. Look closely at this moment. Because something shifted in that hallway. Not between them. Inside the room. Inside the world. Charles extended his hand. Not a handshake of charity. A handshake of equals. Malik took it. No words. Just understanding. For the first time that night, the room saw who truly belonged there. And it wasn't about invitations. It was about character. They walked out together. Not as benefactor and recipient. As two people changed by the same moment. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Charles said nothing. Malik said nothing. They didn't need to. The image said everything. A billionaire and a teenager. Side by side. Equal. Connected by a promise kept. By a life saved. By the understanding that some rooms don't need invitations. They need people who show up. 3 months later. Press conference. Cameras flashed. Charles Whitmore stood at a podium. Behind him, a banner read, "The Ethan Whitmore Emergency Access Initiative. Millions in funding for medical training in underserved communities." And standing beside him, Malik Carter. Not in a borrowed suit now. In a tailored jacket. Standing tall. Not as a charity case. As a partner. As proof that when you give someone a chance, they don't just take it, they become it. Charles looked at him before speaking. And nodded. Not acknowledgement. Respect. Charles spoke clearly. "The young man we almost removed from that room saved my son's life." He paused. Let the weight settle. "Let me say that again. The young man we almost removed saved my son's life."
He looked at Malik.
That will never happen again. Not to him. And not to anyone underestimated because of how they look. Applause thundered. But Malik didn't smile widely. He simply looked steady. Because this wasn't revenge. It wasn't humiliation. It was restoration. The way things should have been from the start. This isn't about one gala. It's not about one boy. It's about rooms that decide who belongs. It's about the people we miss because we're not looking. It's about what happens when we finally see. Malik didn't save Ethan because he was special. He saved him because he was prepared. Because he turned grief into purpose. Because he made a promise and kept it. And that's something anyone can do. You don't need wealth. You don't need connections. You just need to pay attention. And show up. That night, after the press conference, Malik received an envelope. Heavy paper. Cordial. Inside, a letter from Charles Whitmore. Full medical school scholarship. No conditions.
No expectations. Just opportunity.
Because Charles finally understood what Malik's sister's death had taught him years ago. Access matters more than apology. A chance matters more than words. Malik held the letter. Thought about his sister. Thought about that hospital hallway 3 years ago. The promise he made. The promise he kept. And now a new chapter. Final scene. Malik sitting in a medical school lecture hall. First day. Sunlight through windows. Students around him. Unaware of his story. He touches his sister's photo in his pocket. Whispers, "We made it." Not I. We. Because she was with him every step. Every late night studying. Every moment of doubt. Every compression on that ballroom floor. She was there. And now, in this room full of future doctors, a boy who lost his sister was becoming the person who could save someone else's. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you pass forward. Sometimes the person they try to remove is the very person sent to save the room. Malik didn't seek that role. He didn't want to be a symbol. He just wanted to be ready. For the moment no one else saw coming. For the child no one else noticed. For the chance to do what his sister never got. 3 years ago, he made a promise in a hospital hallway. Tonight, in a ballroom full of strangers, he kept it. Not because he was special. Because he was prepared. Because he turned grief into purpose. Because he showed up. That night, after the cameras left and the crowd dispersed, Malik stood alone for a moment. Charles approached him.
No speeches.
No press. Just 2 people. "I can't give her back," Charles said quietly. "I know, but I can make sure her death means something." He handed Malik an envelope. Heavy paper.
Coltsal.
Inside, full medical school scholarship. No conditions.
No expectations.
Just opportunity. Because Charles finally understood. Access matters more than apology. A chance matters more than words. Malik held the letter. Walked outside. Found a quiet bench. Sat alone. Pulled out his sister's photo from his pocket. Small.
Worn.
Precious. He looked at her face. The same face that visited him every night. The same face that pushed him to study when he wanted to quit. The same face that whispered, "Keep going," when doubt crept in. "We made it," he whispered. Not I. We. Because she was with him every step. Every compression. Every moment. And now, her death would save others. That was the promise. That was the legacy. 1 year later, Malik walked into his first medical school lecture. Students around him, laughing, nervous, excited. None of them knew his story. None of them knew about the gala. About Ethan. About the compressions on a marble floor. About the sister who died too young. He took a seat, opened his notebook, and for a moment, just a moment, he felt her beside him. Not as grief, as presence, as purpose. The boy who was almost removed from a room was now becoming the person who would save countless others. That's not irony. That's justice. Final scene, Malik in a white coat. Hospital hallway. First day of clinical rotations. A young patient calls for help. Malik doesn't hesitate. He moves forward. Ready. Because that's what he promised. That's who he became. 3 years ago, he couldn't save his sister. Now he would spend his life saving everyone else's. Not to replace her. To honor her. To make sure no one else collapsed without someone ready. The boy they tried to remove? He became the one everyone needed. That's not a story. That's a legacy. If Malik's story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button right now. Not for me, for yourself. Because every time you subscribe, you're saying yes to more stories like this. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Stories about keeping promises. Stories about becoming who you're meant to be. And leave a comment below. Tell me, is there someone in your life whose memory pushes you forward? A parent? A sibling? A friend? I read every single comment. Remember, you don't need to be invited to belong. You just need to show up. Ready. Like Malik did. Subscribe now, and let's keep telling these stories together. See you in the next one.